gentlemen, welcome. I'm Bob Orr, the Dean of the School of Public Policy, and it's wonderful to see you all here this morning. When I came here 3 years ago, I talked with people on campus, talked with people in my school, talked with people on the outside about what priorities we needed to have as a School of Public Policy. And the issue that came across from all of those different constituencies was that in the policy sphere, we need to prepare ourselves for the cyber century. And we had some assets, but that this was going to take a dean's push to really move this to the level that we need to be at. I'm pleased about today because this ceremony with our guests from CIS is a concrete embodiment of my hope that we as a university and we as a School of Public Policy can be a bridge and find the right partners in industry, in government, and in the nonprofit space to fulfill that vision, that dream that we could serve as a bridge between policymaking and a very quickly evolving reality in the cyberspace. So it's a good day for me. I'd like to first welcome our guests from CIS, Kurt, Tony, Catherine, Barbara. It is fantastic to see all this talent in one room, and I know from even just a few conversations, it's never boring when you folks are in the house, so welcome. I'd also like to acknowledge Dan Ennis, the Executive Director of the University of Maryland Cyber Initiative, and Dr. David Mussington, the Director of the Cyber Policy Initiative at the School of Public Policy, and Charlie Harry here, who have been our team working with the CIS team to help bring this MOU to fruition. I just wanted to share a couple observations as a non-cyber expert, but as a engaged policy maker and scholar of policy making. One of the big trend lines that I've seen is how as cyber threats and cyber opportunities have grown, policymakers have remained almost systematically oblivious of the developments on the cyber side of the house. And this not only creates huge potential for problematic divides, it also is troubling in that even as the latest hack, the latest problem on the cyber side erupts, different parts of policymaking communities react. So on the opportunity side, there's a set of actors. And on the threat side, there's a set of actors. And often ne'er the twain shall meet. What I am extremely pleased about is that this partnership will help us to cross at least that big boundary line, as many as well as many others, I believe. I personally have entered this space not as a policymaker, but as a victim. Every single employer I have had as an adult has informed me that my information has been compromised. That's 2 different federal U.S. government agencies. That is 3 different academic institutions and 1 nonprofit. The only one that didn't inform me that my information had been hacked, the United Nations, I'm sure it was hacked, but they just didn't know it, so I wasn't informed. But I say that because this is personal. It's not just an important policy issue that we need to deal with as a society. There are a lot of people who are vulnerable and don't even know it in this space. And I think we owe it to them as policymakers and as scholars of policymaking to bring this expertise that is represented in this room to bear on these problems and these opportunities so that those people that are vulnerable and don't even know it can benefit from the expertise here. I'm profoundly pleased to have this partnership with CIS because of the quality of the individuals here in this room and with Jane Hall-Lute, who initially made the introduction, who has been a partner in various policy endeavors with me. I couldn't think of better people to partner with. So Kurt and Tony, your whole team, I really am excited personally to not only move down this road, but to move down this road with you. I want to invite Kurt in a moment to say a few words from the CIS side, but before doing so, I'd like to have Dan say a few words of welcome from the campus side, because this is not just an endeavor of the School of Public Policy. We are bridging this gap between our technical expertise on campus and our policy expertise on campus. And Dan is our partner-in-chief on campus. So Dan, if I could invite you to say a few words.
So thank you. Thank you for allowing me to speak. So the Maryland Global Initiative on Cybersecurity is essentially Charlie, Harry, and myself, and Charlie does 90% of the work. So. But that said, it's an initiative about bringing the campus together on cybersecurity issues. The fact is that there are stovepipes of strength across the university on cybersecurity. Maryland, a leading research university, incredible technical acumen and aptitude and skills, does an incredible job in turning out professional cybersecurity experts. The problem set, as Dean Orr referred to, though, is larger. It is at this point in time an issue that you absolutely could pull the thread through any school, any entity in the university and find some relevance, particularly as the cybersecurity issue itself is so problematic. I would actually, and I was with Jim Rosenthal, who was a former COO of Morgan Stanley and kind of knows this, and, the other day, and we were talking, and here's a person who led Morgan Stanley to success over a 10-year period. And the biggest issue that he left with, you can think, 80,000 employees, worldwide presence, everywhere I went, travel, I see a Morgan Stanley office. And the biggest issue that he had was cybersecurity. And they were spending over $300 million a year as a sort of an awareness issue in terms of how problematic that is. But I only allude to these figures to talk about the fact that when we look at many of our challenges, such as terrorism and other things, and even cyber, we've looked to the government for that expertise. And frankly, the government is pressed to the glass just to figure out what it's doing internally to protect itself. And as we know from some of the intrusion sets, that's problematic. And when we add to that both the complexity of the targets that include both nation states as well as increasingly sophisticated cyber hacktivists and criminal elements, we really have a problem that if the government is not scaling to it, then who does? Who fills the void to protect what Jim Rosenthal from Morgan Stanley would say the real target is, and that's ultimately our economic well-being. The fact is, the democratic principles, all that we hold dear in the United States, and I know this sounds a bit over the top, hand over the heart, but it's actually true. All that we hold dear runs on this economic engine that is the United States economy and our Western allies. And that's what's really the target, whether it's directly targeted by someone or inadvertently through the theft of intellectual property that undercuts that. And at the end of the day, if the government cannot protect us and cannot protect our economy and cannot protect that underlying mechanism that allows us to have the freedoms, the academic freedoms that we have, or any of the freedoms that you might allude to, then who will? And I would submit, and I think this is not any new idea, so I won't claim a credit, but it's the private sector in partnership with academic institutions. The fact is, new kinds of partnerships that actually take the problem and study it from different angles. Not just an angle that is about the technical skills that you need, but an angle that says, what are the policy issues? What are the journalistic issues? And so MAGIC on the campus is about convening that group of folks together to try to figure out where should we be strong, where should we invent, where should we invest on an academic scale that says that we can make this problem, we can help fill some of that void. And we were particularly intrigued when talking to Kirk, because Kirk and I had gone back many years at NSA, and his capability, but the capability of CIS, which has an incredible reputation, an incredible a flavor of integrity that says, hey, here's what the problem set is, and here's how you prioritize. And if I try to make CIS real to the audience, it's about their ability to prioritize for people what's real in this space and what they should be looking at. And so the idea and the opportunity to partner with Kurt and Tony and his organization and to work with School of Public Policy helps this idea of coherence at the University of Maryland in terms of cybersecurity, but it has a larger vision. And that larger vision is to help us collectively as the United States, as a Western-leaning democratic nations, to begin to form those partnerships that can have unique value in addressing the cybersecurity problem. So we are glad to have Kurt, Tony, and the team here. In fact, we've offered up some space for them so that they can actually sit. Kurt's a little worried about that because he's sat with me in meetings before. That can be problematic, but I was told to behave today, and I will, okay? So I won't, watch me. So. But at any rate, it really is a unique opportunity, and you'll see more of these partnerships as we go forward, but I would submit to you in closing that it's these kind of partnerships that will actually make a difference. Make a difference in alerting folks downtown, be it at the executive level, making folks aware in the public and journalism so that they understand what to report on, and ultimately making a difference when we engage private sector entities that are the targets of these attacks. So look forward to the partnership, look forward to engaging, and can't wait to see the next steps. Thank you.
And then, Kurt, before turning the microphone over to you, I also want to ask David Mussington to say a few words, because just as Dan is the director of our cyber initiative on campus, David is the director of our cyber initiative at the school, and he and Dan share something in common. Charlie Harry, which I'm glad to get the shout out here. I don't know if he does 90% of your work and 90% of your work. I'm trying to figure out how the percentages add up here, Charlie. So, David?
Thank you, Dean. I'd like to echo what Dan had to say. I think for MAGIC to reach its best potential, full potential, it needs school and departmental partners, and it's our intention to create one of those in the School of Public Policy. My own background is sort of complicated with industry and government and academia combined. I think it's fair to say that government is not the lead in terms of at least feeling a sense of energy about this. I think that leadership passed to industry a while ago. But at the same time, this is a governance problem, not a government problem, to quote our dean from yesterday at a conference we held with a Chinese academic partner. I think it's going to take efforts from academia, government, because there are some authorities issues that need to be worked out here, and some real intellectual contributions from the private sector, which is where I think most of the cutting edge sort of threat and risk analysis techniques are coming from, and where most of the assets are actually owned. I think that creates a unique opportunity for the school to both provide assistance to private sector entities that want, for example, to talk to students about whom they may try to hire in terms of curriculum development and training. On the other hand, some out-of-the-box analysis that academia may be able to execute that may open up the solution set for industry and government to anticipate new risks. In that direction, we're doing some work with the State Board of Elections on election cybersecurity, and we're doing some work prospectively with Lockheed Martin to sort of take lessons from the defense industrial base and apply those more generally. So it's our intention to sort of leverage our public-private partnerships vision. This is me speaking as director of CPP as well, to try and expand the school's ability to partner effectively with MAGIC and project a positive and proactive face to the state and others. I share Dan's feeling that this is, in a sense, an emergency, and we are late to the game in terms of understanding where cyber risks, what the incidence of cyber risks is in almost every critical industry and mission set for government that we have. And the sooner the better in terms of engaging the best minds that we have, and that's sort of our intention. So, thank you again.
Okay, so now the main event. We're going to hear from Kurt, and then I like the setup here, Kurt, just to give you warning, you know, after watching all these signing ceremonies at the UN and in the US government, you know, the thought of us getting to sit, I looked at this table and said, who's going to be sitting here? And then I just realized, oh, that's us. So you're the main event. Welcome.
Well, let me also give my welcome. So first, I have to give a thank you. The first thank you is to Dean Orr and also to the Honorable Jane Hall-Lute. They had the vision to see the connection between the Center for Internet Security and the University of Maryland's School for Public Policy. I'll admit I'm a technologist. My background is a computer scientist, undergraduate and graduate degrees. I'm thinking, why would I ever want to deal with public policy? And I have to admit, I thought, you know, this is an odd marriage, but okay, you know, I'll trust, you know, Jane and Dean Orr. So we had our first meeting, and I still was kind of still trying to feel out this relationship. But then a couple of events have occurred. Now I'm actually going to talk about 3 examples of why I think there is this new nexus between cybersecurity, and that's really my career has been in cybersecurity, and also with public policy. And so the first example, and it's been alluded to, has to do with voter integrity. So we know we had this unfortunate event with the 2016 election and potential nation-state interference with that, but it really has come to terms now with this mix of technology and what we would call voter integrity in this instance here. So that would be my first example of why you would want the little nonprofit Center for Internet Security that actually has a very powerful mission about security best practices and also about the 20 controls, things that you can do practically to help defend yourself. And we need that as part of this voter integrity. So we are launching by the end of this year a best practices guide for voting systems. That's just the start, and then we actually want to move into reference architecture and things of that nature. So I think this is a perfect opportunity for us to be teaming with the University of Maryland. As Dr. Munsington alluded to, he's already got the connection with the state of Maryland. So I think there's an opportunity for us to, as technologists, bring what we know with you, with your policy how, and actually try to do something that will protect our voting systems into the 2018 election. Second example, and that kind of brings this nexus together, is really around what I call the Internet of Things. I didn't coin the term; it was coined 20 years ago. But everyone now, you know, you can't talk in any speech without talking about Internet of Things, and so. I think there's 2 clear examples here, and the first one is with autonomous vehicles, right? And so now you've gone to where the human controlled the vehicle to the actual a machine, you know, controlling itself, and you're just there along for the ride. But I think there's a policy nexus about just how intrusive, technology can be in your private life. And so I think there's an opportunity here for us to kind of come up with some technology and policy parameters for how you'd go about doing that. And the third area is also in the area of the Internet of Things is with artificial intelligence. Everything today, you can't buy a component or a piece of technology today that is not a sensor. It is collecting telemetry, and it is looking for an outlet to send that telemetry either to a gateway or to an endpoint. So it is monitoring you. I mean, so if you think about Orwellian nation state, we're moving in that direction. So I think there ought to be some policy around IoT and how we actually use that. And so again, back to the Center for Internet Security. Bunch of really reformed NSA employees now working for public goodness, and I just think there's an opportunity space here for us to help inform through academia, through School of Public Policy, on what that policy will look like in that regard. So I really look forward to the partnership. As Dan alluded to, my big ask. Although I don't know if it was, I'm not quite sure who snookered who, but the point is I said, hey, do you have any space? Maybe we could cohabitate with you. And the reason I want to do that is because we'd like to start sponsoring some internships and moving on some of these actions. And so the best way to do that is again, find our way into the University of Maryland, and we're sitting with high-end students and actually working towards that. And so Dan and the dean and Dave and Charlie, who does all the work, by the way, they were quick to say yes, and that's what makes me wonder, did I get snookered in this deal? But no, Tony, myself, and Catherine and Barbara, and we operate out of our homes mostly. We have a small location in Robinson, Virginia, but I don't know if you live north of the DC Beltway. You don't like that commute at all, and I've learned I don't like that commute at all. So I operate mostly out of the house, but I'd much rather actually drive the 22 miles here to the University of Maryland campus and actually and use that as an opportunity space and a bridge for us to build better relationships here within the state. So with that, I'm standing between you or some of us and lunch, but I just want to again thank you, Dean Orr, for hosting us, engaging us, and having the wisdom and the vision to actually see what this could actually come to. Again, it took me. I'm a little slower. I'm from the South. We always approach things a little slower, but I actually I think you're spot on. I think there's a great opportunity space for us, and also I'll next time I see the Honorable Jane Root, I'll also tell her that she was right. She loves hearing that from me, and again, I thank you, and I look forward to the opportunity with you. So.
I've always looked at my bosses and said, "What do you do during the signing ceremony?" I said, "Sign." I don't think we need that. So let's see. We have 3 copies here. This is. We'll do this in industrial production line.
Yeah.
Pass them
On the side as well.
No, I think. You know, that's right.
Yeah. All right.
Old time religion works here.
Perfect. I get to keep the pen?
You do. And I have to say, I learned a long time ago from a Southern friend of mine, always be careful when someone says they're slow, because it really means they're fast. They're like that duck with the feet paddling under the water and looking really slow on the surface.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah.
All right. And so, welcome to our guests. We'll repair upstairs and talk about how we move forward. Thank you all for coming.